War is often remembered for victory, for strategy, for power, but that's not the full story. Because behind every battlefield, there was something else, something darker, not written in detail, not shown clearly, moments where survival replaced rules, where decisions were made that changed lives forever. Because when history became brutal, it wasn't just about who won. It was about what people were willing to do to survive. War has always existed, but there are moments in history when it changed, when it moved beyond strategy and control and into something far more intense. Moments where the usual rules no longer applied, where survival became the only priority, and decisions were made under pressure, fear, and uncertainty. On the battlefield, conditions can shift quickly. Plans break down, communication fails, and what was once organized can become unpredictable. In those moments, individuals are forced to react, not with preparation but with instinct. And instinct doesn't always follow rules. For many soldiers, the experience of war wasn't just about fighting. It was about navigating situations that tested limits, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Because war doesn't just challenge strength. It challenges judgment, the ability to decide under pressure, to act when there is no clear answer, and to live with the consequences afterward. These moments are rarely simple. They don't fit into clear narratives of right or wrong. They exist in a space where everything is uncertain, where outcomes are unclear, and where every action carries weight. Because when situations become extreme, people are pushed beyond what they thought possible. And history in those moments becomes something else. Not just a record of events, but a reflection of how far human behavior can be stretched under pressure. When structure breaks, chaos takes its place. In war, plans are made with precision. Movements are calculated. Outcomes are predicted. But reality doesn't always follow plans. There are moments when everything begins to slip. Orders don't reach their targets. Units become separated. The battlefield turns into something unrecognizable. And in that confusion, control fades. For those caught in it, the experience is overwhelming. Sounds blend together. Signals are missed. Decisions have to be made instantly, with limited information and no guarantee of success. Because in chaos, hesitation can be costly. But action can be just as risky. This is where war changes. Not into something organized, but into something unpredictable. Individuals are forced to rely on instinct, to react to what's directly in front of them rather than what was planned. And in those moments, clarity is rare. There's no time to step back, no space to fully understand the situation. Only movement, reaction, survival. For many, these moments leave a lasting impact. Not just because of what happened, but because of how quickly everything changed. One moment there is structure, the next there isn't. And adapting to that shift is not simple, because it requires letting go of expectations and facing a reality where outcomes are uncertain and every decision matters. In these moments, war is no longer about strategy. It becomes something else entirely, something harder to define and harder to forget. Behind every moment of chaos, there are people, not just soldiers, but individuals with thoughts, memories, and lives beyond the battlefield. And when war becomes intense, the impact is not limited to the moment, it carries forward. For many, the experience doesn't end when the fighting stops, because what they've seen, what they've faced, stays with them. War places individuals in situations that are difficult to process. Fast decisions, unpredictable outcomes, constant pressure. Over time, that pressure builds. And even after the moment passes, its effects remain. Some try to move forward quickly, focusing on what comes next, avoiding reflection. Others find it harder, because certain experiences are not easy to set aside. They return in memory, in thought, in quiet moments when everything else has stopped. And this isn't always visible. From the outside, life may continue, but internally, something has changed, because war doesn't just affect the body. it affects perception, how people see the world, how they understand risk, safety, and control. For many, the hardest part isn't what happened during the conflict. It's what comes after. Learning to live with experiences that don't easily fit into everyday life, and finding a way to move forward, even when part of that experience stays with them. Because when history becomes brutal, the cost is not only measured in outcomes. It's measured in what individuals carry long after the moment has passed. In the most intense moments of war, everything narrows down to one thing: survival. Not strategy, not orders, just survival. When conditions reach that point, priorities shift. Decisions are no longer made with long-term outcomes in mind, but with immediate necessity. What matters now is getting through the moment. For those experiencing it, time feels different. Seconds stretch. Awareness sharpens. Every movement, every sound, every decision carries weight, because there's no room for error, and no time to pause. In these moments, individuals rely on instinct, on what they've learned, yes, but also on something deeper. A reaction shaped by pressure, urgency, and the need to continue. And that changes behavior. Not because people choose to act differently, but because the situation demands it. Actions become faster, more direct, focused only on what is necessary. And afterward, those moments can be difficult to process, because survival decisions are not always simple. They exist in a space where everything is uncertain, where choices are made without full understanding, and with outcomes that can't be reversed. This is where war becomes most intense. Not in large-scale movements, but in individual moments. Moments where everything comes down to one question: what do you do when survival is the only rule left? When we look at history, we often see structure, timelines, events, outcomes. But within those records, there are layers that don't always appear clearly. Experiences that are difficult to fully capture. Moments that exist between the lines. Because history often focuses on what can be measured, what can be recorded. But not everything fits into that structure, especially when it comes to human experience. The uncertainty, the pressure, the decisions made in seconds that shape everything that follows. These are not always written in detail, not because they aren't important, but because they are complex, difficult to define, and often personal. Yet they are part of the story, a part that helps explain not just what happened, but how it was experienced. Because behind every event, there are individuals navigating moments that don't have clear answers. Moments that challenge understanding and leave lasting impact. This is the side of history that isn't always visible. Not because it doesn't exist, but because it's harder to show, harder to summarize, harder to place into simple narratives. But it matters, because it reminds us that history is not only about outcomes. It's about experiences. And when those experiences become extreme, they reveal a different side of human behavior.